their whole entire world changed just because they came to and they said, I cannot deal with this any longer. Okay? Some of us have experience in other different areas that we're able to help you out in your own personal life. Okay?
Hey yo, what up though? I be that Sequential Geek. Welcome to my channel. A Sequential Geek. Thank you for swinging by. I would call this a NuMarvel haul. That is the unofficial name. NuMarvel, capital N, capital M. NuMarvel, it's an unofficial term for this era that I was just amazed with. I thought that comics were on their way up. I thought it was this point of no return. I had come back from teaching English for just over a year in Europe, and I was in Colorado for a few months after that, and then headed out over to Seattle. Was checking out all the comic book shops over there, and just seeing all these like different styles of like European type style arts, and some manga paste books, and some stories that weren't called decompressed. It was just how they were told, and it was interesting and it was fun. They weren't trying to sell trade paperbacks. We're talking some type of circumstance that created a level of creativity that was going out of bounds of brand identity, of the crap that was going on since 1985, 86, when the speculator bubble started and everybody had to be called a mutant and everything was first issue again. And just, you could see like the quality of inking and coloring. The coloring wasn't inside the lines with a lot of comics. I remember Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars Part 2. By the time, when that came out, it was just like, what the fuck is going on? There were some gems at the time here and there, but things were slowly getting worse, and you could see it every year. And by 1989, by 88, I was out. By 89, I was finishing off a few story arcs, and I was no longer buying comics on the reg, and then stopped going to comic book shops by like 1990, 91. I would go to a comic book shop every 3 or 4 years. And then, I would check out comic shops, and then eventually I just didn't have anything to do with television or movies or anything throughout the 90s. And then started checking out pop culture again, and this little mini era, it was this mini renaissance that inadvertently had this combination of Joe Quesada being editor-in-chief. You could say that NuMarvel started with Marvel Knights, with Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti's company that got contracted out to take characters that weren't part of the mainstream and kind of this separate universe, kind of not a separate universe, but these enclosed stories that don't really have any consequences that affect the rest of the Marvel 616 universe. And Dan Buckley was running the publishing with Bill Jamaas as president. Bill Jamaas turned out to be a real character, a real ass. It turned out he was like, I don't know, saying how he knew karate, for example, and then while somebody was in the middle of their work, he'd try and do karate moves on them or kung fu moves or some shit. He just got like out of hand more often than not in the workplace, right? While people are trying to do their job, this guy's being a schmuck. So one of the things I know with Bill Jamaas, though, was that he had this talent for making things look mainstream, for having a mainstream appeal, for mainstream marketing. And I don't mean from ruining the images, but I mean like those borders that they would put on both sides of the Ultimate Comics. The Ultimate Comics came out at this time. 21st Century Take, that's one of the aspects of NuMarvel, is like a remodernization of comics. You also had 9/11 that occurred. You had the concept of anonymity being removed from people's consciousness. You've got creators that are coming in from the fringe, from indie, you would say, kind of publishing, DIY type of publishing, and they were given a chance to write these mainstream characters. Grant Morrison, Jay Lee teamed up for this 4-issue limited series called Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4. Each issue started off focusing on one of the members of the team. It turns out this whole story is an elaborate plot, of course, by Dr. Doom to divide up the Fantastic Four and defeat Reed Richards. And this story is, I look at this just from the second I saw it to, when I read that first issue, I was just blown away. The first issue came out in October 2001. I got these comics here in newsstand for $7 a piece, average price, including shipping. I think a lot of stuff that was going on with this NuMarvel era is, I've never seen this before. Never seen this before. This is the type of stuff that was going on where instead of focusing on the speculators bubble and saying first issue and calling everybody a mutant because that's a unique aspect of Marvel Comics, so they had to make everybody part of that unique aspect. They had to turn it into a brand identity thing. So everybody's a mutant by the late 80s. It was ridiculous. The way that they were calling people mutants, it was obvious. It was for marketing purposes. It wasn't part of some type of organic storytelling. It was bullshit. So the Fantastic Four, 1, 2, 3, 4, a lot of these comics, another major aspect for me with this was the comics that brought me back into reading comics, into buying comics on the reg. And I did so from around 2001 up until 2000. I should have stopped in 2004, but it lasted like another year and a half, off and on again, because you could just see that, okay, when I heard that they were getting bought by Disney in at the end of 2007, it was like, oh, okay, that's why things were going to shit the past 3-4 years, slowly. That's why Spider-Man and Wolverine joined the Avengers. It's all this stupid stuff that was going on that didn't make any sense, but they're just using up our time and our money so that they can have cross-brand identity recognition. With Spider-Man and Wolverine joining the Avengers by like 2005, it was awful. So leading up to that, this in-between period from a few years after Marvel declared bankruptcy until this new Avengers thing happened, you had this mini renaissance. And I call it NuMarvel, and I apply it to most titles that were going on at that time. Because the mainstream stuff like Thor, Iron Man, they were pretty lame. Even Captain America. There was one like NuMarvel type story that had John Cassaday doing the art. I think it was John A. Reber doing the writing with Captain America. It's a very slow story, but one of the interesting aspects of it is Captain America revealing his identity to the world. And there's also like a Fight Terror cover for issue 2 and all these just like classic Americana-esque type covers for Captain America. They were trying to bring back the look, the sensation of America in these Captain America covers. And it's like, it's dying. It's on its way out. It was, once again, this is the type of stuff that should have came out in the mid-'80s instead of their speculator bubble. This Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3 story with Jay Lee art, just amazing. The 4th issue came out January 2002 cover date. This is where everything culminates, and they find out that, yeah, it's Doom's plan. Like a Doombot that they captured in the first issue brings Ben Grimm to Latveria, where he gets conned into being turned back into a human. And then, of course, he gets hit by a car, breaks his arm, and he's in the hospital. Sue gets seduced by Namor. In this limited series, apparently he can make it rain. And then, Johnny is having to deal with Mole Man, who makes an appearance in this. And then Namor brings Johnny down to this crevasse that's created in the middle of the street. Body of water beneath that Namor pulls Johnny Storm into. And then, of course, things go sideways when Mole Man wants to make Johnny Storm like his slave, and Namor's like, no, I'm gonna hook up with Sue Storm and can't have her brother be like that or something like that. So he ain't having it, and the plans start to fall apart from there. This gives you the impression that it's a story that occurred in the early years of the Fantastic Four. This is the key word here is impression, right? It's a composition of the Fantastic Four. So it's not like a Fantastic Four story where everything is going to be explained and they're going to be in your face about who's what, where, when, and why. I got to say, though, one of the cool things about this new Marvel era, they were bringing back old-time readers and bringing in new readers by around 2002. They were realizing this. And leading up to that, the Ultimate run in the first page did have an intro that would give like a list of the characters and it kind of tell you where the story left off. That type of stuff I think is necessary. Um, and it did help bring in people. But then when you have other stories like this, that once again, it's the composition of the storytelling, it's of the sequential that I really valued. And I just found this to be I don't know how to say it. I can't say it's necessarily filled with lots of action. It's a very like touching story. Touching because it was very appealing story because of the combination of the art, the aspect of storytelling, the whole concept of a composition. It was a composition that was carrying definitions of these old characters into the 21st century. And I just thought this story was fantastic. Loved it. So when I was saying that Iron Man and Thor weren't that great stories during this new Marvel era, because not everything I would say would be like considered new Marvel just because it occurred in that era with Marvel. But how do I put it? A lot of it is these indie artists, indie writers, combination of that kind of. But Straczynski was an indie, and that's one of my points of bringing this here, is that this was just good storytelling. Howard Mackey, Howard Mackey, Howard Mackey brought us a really kick-ass story out of New Marvel, right? The Brotherhood, Evolution, no, Revolution, yes. This is such a fucking dope-ass comic. When I saw this cover, Revolution, not Evolution, I was like, what? In a Marvel comic? You can tell that this was like just when the new Marvel era was beginning, and it's unofficial. Nobody was saying we're going to have this new Marvel era. This was a term that people were throwing around in blogs and at like Newsarama. At the time in the early 2000s, that was Joe Quesada's outlet, and he would have a cup of Joe, and he would basically lie. I didn't realize that looking back. He would say, "Oh, I'm just a huckster," and he'd laugh it off. And by the time the Civil War, The Return came out, that one shot, and he said it was going to break the internet in half, and all these fans were going to be into it. You can't have that much success, all this success, and then not know what a fucking two-faced huckster liar you are.
Absolutely. The joy, the excitement, the energy, the amount of work you guys do, man, it is awesome. It is amazing. I mean, this is a new world to me, like I always say, and I'm amazed at how much you guys get done. There are so many moving parts, and yes, every business has its challenges, has its, exciting dull moments, times where you would have severe targets, but you guys are on it all the time. So hands down, really applaud how you guys pull things along. So happy to be here. Thank you so much.
I understand hucksterism can be fun to promote something, but when it turns into just an outright lie, the Civil War, The Return, was like the return of Captain Marvel, but you find out he's a Skrull. So it's not really the return of Captain Marvel. I don't know. I by the time Civil War came out, I got the first couple issues, and when Spider-Man revealed his identity, I was like, what the fuck? And that's just it. That was one of the aspects of the whole new Marvel thing that I wasn't crazy about. At the time I was crazy about it because I was like, All right, well, damn, they're doing it. They're going to have everyone know everybody's identity. Let's see what happens from here. This particular issue right here by J. Michael Straczynski, he took over Spider-Man after Howard Mackie. And Howard Mackie did an awful job. And if you look at those issues of this volume of Amazing Spider-Man, because they rebooted the volume, obviously, we got this low numbering. Howard Mackie was the writer, and John Byrne did the art, and this is some of John Byrne's worst artwork. So you had John Byrne on the artwork. I can't believe I'm cutting John Byrne down, because this guy's a legend out of the 70s and 80s, as far as I'm concerned. And you've got just this poor combination of Howard Mackie and John Byrne. You'd think they'd be great. Howard Mackie was the co-creator of Danny Ketch's Ghost Rider, right? 91. So 10 years later, this one's from 2002. He gets replaced by J. Michael Straczynski and John Romita Jr. doing the art, and it takes off. He defines the character, and that's just good storytelling. That's just getting what we paid for. Heaven fucking forbid. Oh my God. No agenda. There was no agenda. There was no right wing or left wing agenda. There was nobody trying to appeal to the mass market demographic whose mentality has been bred to affirm their value by not looking at somebody, by not responding to somebody, by making sure that customer or coworker or neighbor knows that they don't like them, like a child. So much of this child mentality worshiping bullshit. I'm going to hold my breath and not do anything till I get my way. Heaven forbid I involve myself with my neighbor. So that's the mentality that they're appealing to. It's not necessarily woke. It's just the whole concept of I want to cancel you. But the majority of the way people are doing it has to do with woke. But there's right wing and left wing and racial, or whether that person's military or not, or plays video games or not. All different flavors of being an American and how you want to reject your neighbor, your customer, your coworker. That's really what the marketing is based on. How do we appeal to today's generation? Well, they don't want to prove anything. They just want to reject people and isolate themselves and do little passive-aggressive jabs at people, mean remarks. The only time somebody's assertive is when it's like, what, Kelly Thompson recently was on the news talking about how Marvel fans are embarrassed about getting the concept of Mary Sue wrong when they apply it to their heroes or some stupid shit. Okay, so in a few years it'll be some Republican extremist saying something about fans instead of this woke bullshit. I don't fucking know. Like anything but just have a good story, right? Because that's what Straczynski did. So some concepts that were seeping into comics that whether you like them or not, it was definitely something from Marvel at least. But I would say overall, this mini renaissance, my point with it is that you are having people do just new things with mainstream comics. And then also your indie comics were just finally broadening their readership, their sales. And even though this is like the birth of the internet, people really weren't basing a lot of their shopping decisions entirely on the internet those first few years of the 21st century. So just find this to be not based off of predictive analytics is my point, which is derived from data mining, which is derived from the internet, which is about social engineering and keeping people isolated, and that has nothing to do with improving anything, right? So,
hey, did the agent provide a solution to you? Is it working? Did the agent provide enough information for you to feel that you're getting value?
You know, the renaissance with Image happened with Eric Stevenson, and that didn't really happen until like I think around 2011, 2012. All right, and Image still, even though they did get that renaissance with their work, Image still pushes the concept of option for a movie. That's another thing that wasn't around all that much in NuMarvel era. That's another hallmark of defining when it ended. You had New Avengers happened. The event basically was replacing storytelling, and then you had variant covers and option for a movie. Yeah, that's one of the aspects that was beginning to replace storytelling.
It's a fun topic. It's an exciting topic. That means that you are successful in what you have delivered to the customer. Please understand that there is a process.
With American comic books. So this is just great storytelling. This isn't really NuMarvel. This is just, heaven forbid, getting what you paid for. This is what the Iron Man and the Thor comics should have been. So, but they weren't, not until after Avengers Disassemble, when they started applying a lot of just the things that would stick from that NuMarvel era to those other mainstream titles. So here we got the Brotherhood. Another aspect of a NuMarvel that I want to point out is edge. A lot of these stories have edge. What is the Brotherhood? The Brotherhood is such a fucking cool, bomb-ass concept. To sum it up, it's a terrorist organization. This comic book got canceled because of 9/11. This is a terrorist cell, and they are their own brotherhood. They're not related to Magneto, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Get this back here. And when I saw this, I was like, just right there, revolution, not evolution. There was another concept that was big in the what do you want to call it? The O's, the first few years of the 21st century. And that was, more effort for people to separate themselves. So you had the whole concept of people saying, I think I've got the gene, the sociopath gene, the gene for being a sociopath. Yeah, I just don't like getting engaged with people, and I just can't feel empathy for anyone. I think I've got the sociopath gene. Just all these concepts about being a sociopath. I think I'm a sociopath. I don't think I have feelings for others. All this excuse, anything but get involved, anything but identify that you're part of something that can affect your neighbor. So my point is this whole revolution, not evolution. Everybody was just like, well, it's evolution. It's survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest. It's just the way it is. Everybody was writing everything off as, I've either got the sociopath gene or survival of the fittest, and that's just how genetics are. Like, everybody is supposed to be this expert on genetics while they sit in traffic and do things that give them cancer and hate their neighbor. So revolution, not evolution. When I saw that, I was just like, oh, hell yeah. And then just the edge of that being a terrorist cell. Oh my God. It's just like a terrorist cell of mutants, and it's completely separate of Magneto's type of shtick. I mean, you've got the Dark Avengers that came out, around 2007, 2008. But they ain't got nothing on this Brotherhood. Although, I got to say, as far as Bendis's work goes, that's another part of that the NuMarvel goodness. I would read Bendis's. I would recommend people read Bendis's Dark Avengers, Alias, and Daredevil. That's it, though. He knew, he has to know what was up. Like, he was starting to write stuff very decompressed towards his end of Daredevil, and he was just helping them set up for the Disney buyout later on by New Avengers. I'm talking about Bendis. So it's crazy to hate on Bendis, but then say at the same time, Bendis was one of the reasons that I got back into comics, because you had that Daredevil comic book when that came out. Holy shit, that was so fucking cool. And this is like a grail for me, because when I saw this comic book, I started reading this. This was another comic book that brought me back into comics. It's got edge. You got this dude Silk. He is Sammy Silk, right? He dies, I think, in issue 45. But here is issue 26. And I know that Bendis started writing for Daredevil earlier, but for me, this is my first Daredevil comic for that era. This is the one that brought me back into comics. This was one that I started buying Daredevil on the reg. As soon as I saw this, started going back to comic book shops. Just thought it was really cool. It was the death of the Kingpin. Obviously he lives, we know, but he gets stabbed to death, man. Caesar style in this comic. And just like the photo-esque type of work by Alex Maleev. It was so fucking good. I was just blown away. I was like, this is where comics should have taken off from by the late 80s, instead of their spec bubble bullshit. That's what I'm getting at. Joe Quesada, Buckley, Jamas, they would say that, readership was so low. Marvel's stock, it was under $2 by the year 2000. So nobody was reading Marvel that much. So they said that they had the luxury of doing more of what they wanted because not that many people were looking. And it got to be successful. And what did they do with it? They abandoned it. So like you're gaining market share, right? You're gaining readership. You're gaining people's money. So you can't tell me people make decisions because it's economical, because business is based off of, well, if this is a profit, then we go in that direction, because that's not the case. That has not been the case for decades now, because this was gold. And they abandoned it all. They abandoned it all by 2005 for the event, and then for doing things that would set them up for the Disney buyout, like that cross-brand recognition with Spider-Man and Wolverine joining the Avengers. It was goddamn awful. So, man, it was so good. I love this story. It was just great. But it did get to be decompressed by like the last couple of years of his run. He wrote, consecutively from 26 till like 81, I think, when that last issue that Bendis wrote was when Matt Murdock got put in jail. He was in jail. I think the Punisher was in the same jail too. All right, so get to that in a minute. Brotherhood at Edge, it was so fucking awesome. And yeah, they had to cancel it after the 9th issue because it's a terror cell. What can you say? July 2002. This is a 9-issue series. Bill Sienkiewicz did the covers for the first 3 issues. And then issues 4, 5, and 6, the covers are by Glenn Fabry. And then the last 3 covers are by Sean Phillips, I believe. Yes, Sean Phillips. So you've got issue 1 there. That is the first appearance of Orwell, which is this guy right there. He's a founding member. And the leader is Marvin Hoffman. He is the leader of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And Orwell is a telekinetic telepath. You've also got the first appearance of your leader, Marvin Hoffman. He's a rival of another member called Marshall. Marshall's first appearance is in issue number 2. And some of these people, they don't even reveal what their powers are, like with Marshall. But he wants to have Hoffman out, and he wants to take control of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. You got some internal drama going on. It's just a cool story, man. I just love this story so much. And then issue number 3 is the first appearance of Maribeth. Also, powers not revealed. Issue number 2 of this 9-issue run is the only comic book that had a second cover by J.G. Jones. And I've only been able to find that in direct, so we're talking searching for years. I don't think this J.G. Jones cover was available in newsstand. If anybody has it, let me know, and maybe we can do a trade. Issue number 4, Glenn Fabry cover. First appearance of Malcolm and his daughter Malone Reeves. We also have the first appearance of Bryson Bale, Fiona Dunn, Clive Vickers, who is from the London cell of the London Terror Cell of the Brotherhood. The first appearance of Bella. It's Glenn Fabry's cover for issue number 6, Revolution, not Evolution. Sean Phillips cover for issue number 9 has X-Force makes appearance. Got another copy of that. And yeah, definitely get these babies in newsstand. We're talking 5% print run is newsstand in 2000, 2.5% by 2005. That issue number 9 came out, cover date March 2002. And these are all written by Howard Mackey. So I thought Howard Mackey, he kicked ass with this Brotherhood series. He just didn't do so well with Spider-Man. Shit. Sorry about that, man. For the interior pencils, Asad Ribich did the interior pencils for the first 3 issues. So Leonardo Manco did the interiors for the Brotherhood artwork, issues 5 and 4. And then issue number 6, the interior artwork is Joe Bennett. And that's Sean Phillips following up, doing the interior artwork for your last 3 issues, as well as the covers. Howard Mackey, when he wrote this story, he had the alias X. So you had a lot of these indie artists, creators, writers that were given a chance to work on Marvel. And, some of it were these limited series, like with Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4. Some of it were these ongoing series, like Bendis. Bendis was indie at the time, man. What was it, Lily or Lilith? He had that comic book that was published by Image, I think. That was a one-shot. He did Torso, Goldfish, great books, Caliber Comics, Bendis started off writing for. So, God, I think it was Caliber Comics out of the Detroit area. So, yeah, Bendis, man, he paid his dues. He worked his way up and then sold the fuck out and did decompressed garbage.
Any questions you people have for me? See, guys, I'm very happy. I would be enthusiastic, or you say that I would be more than happy to explain you people in terms of my policies or anything. Please do not escalate thing before you check with your manager. It gives a wrong impression on your manager, saying that your manager doesn't know things, or you did not check, or whether you checked and your manager does not have the information, or they did not check back, or rather you don't trust talking to your manager.
Because I don't trust talking to my manager.
Yes, if manager says that I don't know the answer, let's go to the person who can give this answer, and well and good. If not, there is a concept called Genie. You can very well ask questions in Genie. It's an open forum. It's a question and answers thing.
But before he did that, decompressed garbage, this Daredevil stuff that he was doing, and an Alias with Michael Giddos on the artwork. I think that was 28 issues. That was so fucking awesome. We're talking like character-driven stories, talking about who these people are, how they think, how they react to certain situations that aren't just somebody robbing a bank or somebody having an affair on them that turns out to be a superhero. Just personality-driven stories. Who are these people? A little bit more in depth. Just more drama that is based on somebody being a superhero. Not necessarily everybody just sitting around talking, but it's just, check it out. I mean, it's just a different type of storytelling that comics can evolve into, can grow into. I would say more of a mature level of storytelling. It's not necessarily quote unquote better. It's just when you read comics for 10 years and it's like 1986, 87 at that point, 88, say, you're like, I've had enough, right? Going on 10 years, some of this stuff's great to pick up occasionally, but, hand it down to somebody, but give me something, take this to the next level. Recognize, if you want comics to last for decades and decades, they don't just have to be for kids. Now I'm just talking in circles. Shit. Preaching to the choir. But when it gets to the point where you have to say stuff like that, to try and send signals out to management, there's something wrong. That there's quantity over quality, and that's how a lot of these mainstream comics are built for. And
No, you can't go backwards in time. It has to be done on a daily basis. Okay. Another metric, TMPI, total minutes per incident. Okay. Your labor on the case must reflect the actual time that you spent on the case. Okay. You take trainings on this every single year in order to make sure that you have completed all the labor. Okay.
it's a shame that they use the machinations, the machinations of capitalism as some bullshit excuse for producing poor content. So, because when you've got like offshore hedge funds and merchandising and licensing, funding everything you're doing, you're not making comics. There is no competition or capitalism at that point. You're just subsidizing something that you don't have to work towards making money for. And that's really what comics have become. Not trying to be negative, but it is a negative thing. And I'm using that to explain why I love NuMarvel so much. I'm taking that negative and showing you some light, that darkness, to bring some light to your reading choices. There is more beyond variant covers, and these political gimmicks are just some type of gimmick that's based off of a YouTube channel that has to hype up what they saw in the background of a television show or in a movie, because that's where we're at. Right? You go on YouTube and you listen to what somebody saw in the background or what some reference that somebody made. Now we got to go buy those comics. Holy shit. So, very spec Gary, you offer some great content, but most of what you offer, though, past few years has been too much speculative BS, dog.
That is the value add. That is what we all are responsible for. Okay? The next thing is that your TA does a thorough review of the case to ensure that all of the quality touch points are done. All right? This is an added requirement.
That's one example. I like that guy. But if he actually hears it, man, take it constructively. Jesus, up your game. There's more than what goes on in the background of these videos, dog. The NuMarvel era brought in this amazing stuff. Just so brilliantly quality content driven. And I swear it was inadvertent. It was just the result of this combination with Dan Buckley being publisher. Bill Jamas left it around 2003. So this, you could just see how, like I posted in previous videos, how the style of things were changing. And Quesada was just like, what do I do? Okay, I'm going to ruin Ultimate's line, and I'm just going to create the Tsunami line, fake manga line, and then I'm going to do Gen Next. And then I'm going to do the event. And that's what Quesada did. The quality of content and things being based on people's personality and characterization was swapped for the event. Because I don't know what happened with Bill Jamas as far as just his type of marketing skills or what was involved, like with Daredevil and Alias and Grant Morrison's new X-Men, when that came out. I don't know how much of that was Bill Jamas, but damn, the combination of those three guys, Buckley, Jamas, and Quesada, it's just fucking awesome. Like, there were just these really just so many cool ideas with these decades-old superheroes that it's like, no, this stuff is not dying. There is so much more room to grow creatively, stylistically, characterization-wise, that to say that, it's too complicated when you've got this and that and so many eras of comics and, it's hard to keep readership and so on. That's such bullshit. That is bullshit. That's just those people making up excuses because they got a limited budget. They got a limited way of running things. And they got the way their departments are set up and their chain of decision-making is set up. It's all whack. It has nothing to do with creating comics.
For example, the next thing is your resolve tab must be fully defined. CSR plus root, cause, symptom, resolution, plus the root, so that you can actually close the case. Okay? blunt words that say resolved, sent the solution, delivered to the customer, customer happy. That means nothing.
It has to do with, we got to keep these IPs alive because we're going to merchandise them, right? Marvel and DC have become merchandising companies that happen to produce comics. And one of the aspects of NuMarvel is this is their last dying breaths of them being an actual comic book company. That's the NuMarvel era. Because by like 2005, 2006, those were its last breaths, man. I mean, you had a few things that were out, like Immortal Iron Fist, Brubaker's Captain America Winter Soldier, a few things here and there, but it was on its way out. So whether it was a woke or some conservative extremism, whatever, political extremism, racial, whatever, they were going to go some type of extremist route. Doesn't matter. Because that's how things are in America. And it's all whack. It's all fucked up. And so this, to me, is like, that's why I'm harping on NuMarvel, because it's like one of the last gasps of, this is a great story. This is not an alternate cover. This is not based off of what somebody saw in the background of a show. This is not based off of a political gimmick, 1 in 10, a 1 in 100. It's just goddamn good storytelling. And that's another aspect of NuMarvel, was that you had attention being paid to both writer and artist. And it didn't matter what they said in interviews. Nobody really gave a shit. They just wanted to read their comics. So,
the next thing is you want to ensure that you're communicating to the customer in a positive, solution-oriented tone. That means
Daredevil 26, got that for $10. That came out cover date December 2001. That's right, first appearance of Sammy Silk. Daredevil 66. I also wanted to get this in a newsstand because you got a classic red and your classic yellow. Both Alex Maleev covers. And this was cool too because it shows him with a chain. I wanted to note, when I saw this, I thought, Daredevil's off the chain. Sorry. So there's 66 on the right. I got that for $6.50. Alexander Bont, first appearance. He is the first Kingpin. He uses the mutant growth hormone drug. And he is known as the first Kingpin. His first appearance here is in issue number 66. He ends up dying at the end of a story arc in issue 70. And then it's issue 71. When this came out, I mean, just look at the cover design here, just with this I Am Your God. I think this ran for 5 issues, this type of story arc. And it was based off of, this was interesting, I gotta say. Even though there was a lot of dialogue, it was these people that met in the basement of a church. It was a group therapy meeting that these people would go through for dealing with vigilantes. How these costume superheroes were not always appreciated. How some of these people had to deal with some type of PTSD and with their experiences getting caught in the middle of supervillain superhero conflicts. And also the fallout of Daredevil in particular becoming the next Godfather, right? The next mob boss, the next Kingpin. So, because he loses his shit, he loses his mind, Daredevil, because he gets outed. There's a great court scene that Bendis writes where he has Mr. Fantastic show up because Daredevil, or Matt Murdock's being put on trial because he was a vigilante. He's a vigilante, and he's a lawyer. There's a conflict of interest here. Guy's out breaking the law. So I think they were going to convict him or take away his ability to be a lawyer at least. But the dialogue in that court case was brilliantly written. I thought that was really fun. You don't have a lot of court cases in comics. Stuff like that. So many different aspects of these characters that can be expanded upon. This cover design, I Am Your God, I thought this was the shit. When I saw this hot red right there with the newsstand, I had to get it. I bought like 3 copies of this cover when it first came out. Totally useless because it was in direct. But I just thought they were really cool. I am your god. Other aspect, Ashley Wood. See what I'm saying? Like, just giving these people a chance to do these comics. And cool thing about 2001 was they were doing all their annuals to the side like this, opening them up the spine like that. So we got, that's right, Marvel Uncanny X-Men issue 400 there on the left. Both Ashley Wood covers there. Ashley Wood doing the artwork. So that Uncanny X-Men Annual 2001, by the way, it's actually written by Bill Sienkiewicz. Interesting. But yeah, covers and interiors by Ashley Wood. Got that for $275. $650 for that comic on the left for that X-Men 400. It's the first appearance of the Supreme Pontiff of Church of Humanity. And also the first appearance of Stacy X. I think she's that pheromone mutant. It's a Joe Casey story on the left. Love that Ashley Wood. All right, so yeah, first appearance of Negasonic Teenage Warhead right there on the left. Another comic that just captured me, man. Like issue 114, the first issue there. Frank Quitely. So another like non-Marvel example of this new Marvel era. We 3. Check out We 3. That 3-issue limited series with Frank Quitely doing the art and Grant Morrison doing the writing. Grant Morrison wrote New X-Men from 114 to issue 154, 155. And he wrote a little bit more. From 151 to 154, that's the Grant Morrison, Mark Silvestri run. Where it's kind of like a Days of Future Past type story. It takes place in the future. You got a grown-up version of Geek. It's pretty fucking awesome. So, Frank Quitely, though, people. Frank Quitely did this Offspring story from DC Comics. That was such a great story. Flex Mentallo as well. But my introduction to Frank Quitely was his work on The Authority that came out around the same time. That's another great new Marvel. I guess, it's that edge that's being given, and it's not necessarily things have to be all so-called rated R, adult, so to speak, content driven to make things new Marvel. But damn, if The Authority wasn't. Mark Millar and Brian Hitch started The Authority from Wildstorm, and then Grant Morrison and then Frank Quitely took over artwork with Mark Millar still writing. And they had this take on the Avengers around issues 13 and 14. Yeah. And it's like this evil take on the Avengers for this Wildstorm universe. And I'm just thinking, wow, a new take on the Avengers that just is cool. You see how so many other generic takes or cliche. Mark Millar and Frank Quitely's take on the Avengers on anything is anything but cliche. All right. Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's take. Any of those guys' take on anything is not going to be cliche. So I was so thankful when I saw The Authority. I kept reading The Authority for another like 10 issues or so for a couple more years. But we got stuck on this new X-Men deal with Grant Morrison up until that like Days of Future Past type story with Michael Turner had ended up until issue 154. From like 114 to 141, I was big on New X-Men, a little touch and go after that. And then, yeah, that Days of Future Past story was pretty cool, type futuristic story. And then that was it. Then, after like issue 154, stopped reading New X-Men. It got to be decompressed. Grant Morrison's run ran for a few more issues, but that was it. It lasts that gusto, that style. There's just that's another key word with new Marvel. Things were not just out to sell comics. There was this cool style that was applied to them. Damn. Another honorable mention for NuMarvel that I'd like to keep in y'all's mind is a Fantastic Four Iron Man, big in Japan. That was a 4-issue limited series written by Zeb Wells with art by Seth Fisher. Seth Fisher did the artwork for Will World that came out around that same time. Will World. That's a Green Lantern story. Will World that Seth Fisher did the art on. It's amazing. So I guess it's another aspect of NuMarvel, just cool, out of box style that is being brought to the writing and to the art. Both writer and artist were being given love simultaneously in this time. So you had a low print run. They were phasing out newsstands as well. And the combination of the low print run with ideas that were being used for inspiration for the movies, ideas that were being used for setting up the success of these live action and animated shows. A lot of that came from NuMarvel. These comics, with their dwindling print runs, the print runs didn't start to pick up until the event happened. So you've got low print runs and great ideas. One thing I'd like to mention too, with Frank Quitely on the new X-Men, this is just a gripe now about Joe Quesada, was this whole bait and switch. But you couldn't get me, Joe. You couldn't get me, man. Because even though you did bait and switch, I still loved the content. I still love that Igor Corday artwork. Yup, or that Ethan Van Sciver artwork. Or that John Paul Leon artwork. Those were the artists that were doing the filler artwork. Frank Quitely, this new X-Men series gave you the impression that it was all Frank Quitely, but it wasn't. Frank Quitely did just the covers only for issues 117 to 120, 124, 132, and 133. He did just the covers only for those. 7 covers. And then Frank Quitely did both the interiors and the covers for issues 114 to 116, issues 121, 122, 126, and 135 to 138. Those are Frank Quitely covers and interiors. So he did do the majority of them. He did define this run, I'd say. Yeah, these are all like 4th copies. I got triples in newsstand of New X-Men from 114 to 140 and then 151 to 154. So I just got these extra 4th copies. Why? Well, because also my 135 issue had some fading around here. So I got to replace it with this beauty. Yeah, issue 115, got that for $23. Issue 127 I got for $2.25. Issue 128 I got for $36. Yeah, issue 135 and 131. 131 I got for $9.74. 135 I got for $6.50. Ethan Van Sciver cover right there of Emma Frost. Had to throw in some Phantom X goodness. A lot of first appearances out of this run. Yeah, Dust, issue 133. Quentin Quire. What was he? He was like 134, right after Dust's first appearance. And then right there on the left, you got the first appearance of Phantom X. First cover appearance on the right by Igor Corday, who did the cover and the interiors of issues 129. Although Corday did the interiors of issue 128, that is an Ethan Van Sciver cover. Yeah, this was 36 because shipping, shipping has gone from what, $3 to $5 to like $5 to $7. For me, it's like around $4.75, $4.50 at the lowest if I'm lucky. Another honorable mention that's not related to Marvel, but came out around this time. Dave Johnson doing the covers for all 100 issues. Brian Azzarello doing the writing. Eduardo Risso, 100 Bullets. I know I showed this before in the past. You've got these 13 rich families that run the world. They have this Minutemen, these guys in suits here that keep everybody in check, make sure people don't go too crazy. Trying to do power grabs, keeps the balance in check. But this guy Graves, he creates his own little like family. There were these Minutemen sleeper cells that he wakes them up, or he's trying to recruit new people, either way, by giving them this briefcase with 100 bullets, some photographs, and some evidence how people had screwed over their lives. This woman, Dizzy, she's in prison. She gets out, gets approached by Graves. I think she's from LA. But he's trying to recruit her to be one of his Minutemen because he's trying to start his own syndicate. His own family, so to speak, his own power grab by waking up these sleeper cell Minutemen. He's recruiting a new one here with Dizzy, but this woman, but a lot of these other people, they have to be given a code word to be broken, to be woken up, and to kind of break that spell of them being under, not knowing that they're like in this sleeper cell. A lot of characterization-driven storytelling here with Mr. Brian Azzarello, down to just language. I guess in some aspects you would call it slang. In other aspects you would just say it's colloquial, idiomatic phrases, and the way people speak. Yeah, Eduardo Risso. I mean, all the artists from this NuMarvel era were my favorite artists. I'm not saying that they all got their start in the year 2000 and onward, but they all gained notoriety, recognition, in this NuMarvel era. Things were coming together with these indie publishers going full swing, like I said, which brings me Strange Tales, because you've got your indie independent publishers, writers and stuff that don't want to go mainstream, but they're not trying to be like super artistic, impressionistic with their storytelling, with their sequential. So there's that's what I'm saying with NuMarvel. NuMarvel wasn't necessarily like, hey, I want to grab every single indie comic artist and have them do a rendition of a superhero and have that be ongoing. It's just trying to have the stories become more, in a sense, more mature, but just more advanced, more characterization driven, paying more attention to the mythology of the characters, the aspects of the mythology that stick out, that can help define the character or just be expanded upon in defining a character. And then have those consequences of that character's decision making of who they are create events. You could have events bookended by these characterizations. There's the camera there. Dude. Let's just wrap this up by just showing how, Marvel did care, but it was like window dressing at this point.
For any questions, any concerns. If you are not doing that, nothing will happen to me, nothing will happen to you, nothing will, manager or HR will not think any bad about thing. But I feel bad that you people don't trust talking to me, or you don't trust me, or you don't rely on me. So I felt bad that, my team doesn't have trust in me. They don't want to talk to me. Make sense?
Because they had 2 Strange Tale volumes that came out. They were 3-issue limited series. The other day I managed to find issues 2 and 3 of the first volume. 2 3-issue limited series. You had volume 2 that came out December 2010 was the first issue, cover date. But then this first volume right here, issue number 1, had 2 covers. It was a black and white cover by Paul Pope on top of his color one. It's the same image. And then issue 3 right here on the right by your Usagi Yojimbo creator, Stan Sakai, just had this one cover. And then although there were 2 covers for issue 1, 1 cover for issue 3. Issue 2 had 2 covers. Just one here with this green Hulk, and then another one that's also by Peter Bagge, the creator Hate, where Hulk is red, and he says, "Why Hulk red?" Something like that. And these are all these indie creators that were at full swing. They were getting full recognition. They were getting full-on success. And through either like Drawn and Quarterly or Fantagraphics or Slave Labor Graphics, or Dark Horse had some gems, but Dark Horse was mainly pushing like licensed properties. So I'd also have to mention Last Gasp, but also, Oni Press and IDW too were pushing some interesting things. IDW's 30 Days of Night, that's another comic book that brought me back into comics. I wouldn't say that that's a modernization of vampires, because I keep saying how NuMarvel is modernizing thing, but it's another take on something that is out of box, that's pushing things beyond brand identity. And I keep preaching brand identity because, with a lot of these companies, they don't want to expand because they base their decisions on brand identity. They've got a quote unquote a way of showing things, a way something is depicted, and they stick to that, and they want it to become popular enough so that they can license it out. And then they just nurture that look for licensing, not for storytelling, not for trying to create interesting stories that people are supposed to pay for. I guess people today are supposed to accept that if it's supposed to support the licensing, and if it's something is not sustainable as far as licensing goes, then it's supposed to be acceptable that it can't sell. But I just started off this whole video by saying that, if Marvel was gaining market share, if they were gaining new readers back with all these great ideas, with this NuMarvel goodness, and then they abandon it all? Wait, if you're gaining more money, why are you abandoning that? Why would you completely abandon awesome characterization, awesome storytelling, great respects paid to both artists and writers, so that you can do events? It's just so you can make decisions based off of metrics, key performance indicators, and processes, instead of paying attention to how actually things work.
The list of cases which we expect 5-star from the case, but we are not getting 5-star out of that case. I want the ticket numbers so that I can reach out to go through the ticket and understand what we did best, what we did missed, that we did not get the 5-star, and then I can talk to the customer and explain them the feedback concept so that we can get the 5-star, the ratings from the customer, the feedback.
It's just an easier way of doing things. It's not necessarily, in my opinion, more profitable. It's just easier way to reach a profit. So we don't get interesting things. And this trade paperback I got the other day is a gem. I'm not saying that the mainstream titles should go this route, but I think giving successful indie creators access to these character-based assets for one-shots and things like that, and for this regard of these types of artists, I think is vital for the future of Marvel, if they want to be recognized as more than just a merchandising company that happens to create comics. Same thing with DC. Like I said, they don't have to have these types of writers and artists do stuff for the mainstream, but doing standalone independent things, I think would be great. If you have a magazine-sized anthology that reprints stories as well as including new up-and-coming artists giving their take on enclosed stories, that would be awesome. That's one idea. Print's not dead. There are places in the world, like Japan, parts of Europe, where people are still buying comics. It's not going anywhere, and it's in print. So this is James Kachalka. Dash Shaw. The images right here. This is Paul Pope right here. Very cool. And I think after Paul Pope is, Molly Crabapple. So, as far as the mainstream though goes, it's something more creative, something that is definitely more indie, but still have people be drawn to look like humans, like regular human beings. Frank Whiteley kicked ass, but his shit still looked like a person. Zorn.
Am I making sense? Yes, no. My voice is audible. No, or you hear my daughter's. Okay, you might hear my daughter's voice as well in the background. Okay. Any question? Okay, guys. Okay.
And then, of course, you had the Ultimates line. Just wanted to show that off. It's the Ultimate Spider-Man number 33, Brian Michael Bendis story. Yeah, this is the fodder from this. First few issues of this Ultimate Spider-Man was used for the Spider-Man movie. These Mark Bagley covers and interior arts. I think they ended up with the longest writer-artist combo run. They did more comics than the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby combo. With this Ultimate Spider-Man run, they broke a record. Mark Bagley and Brian Michael Bendis. That's the first appearance of Ultimate Venom, which in this universe is Eddie Brock. Out of February 2003, including shipping, that was $20. Two of another honorable mention, right? Startling Stories, the Megalomaniacal Spider-Man. That is a one-shot by Mark Bagley, the creator of Hate. And then you also have Jason Sturm's Unstable Molecules. And then you also have, I already mentioned Alias, but Peter Milligan and Mike Allred's X-Force. Right? And then you got, like I said before, Captain America was revealing his identity. All the members of X-Force, their identities were revealed because that was like a reality TV show more than it was a band of superheroes. A new aspect, a new take on superheroes. That is a modernization of superheroes, which I thought was interesting. Also depicting how people are being selfish and self-centered. Yeah, definitely check out that Allred Milligan story of X-Force, which started in issue 116. I think it ran until 128, but such a great story. First comic to officially drop the Comics Code Authority, X-Force 116. That is definitely definitive of NuMarvel. So that's my NuMarvel haul, y'all. From the Ultimates, Brian Michael Bendis, Grant Morrison. On the X-Men, Brian Michael Bendis. Daredevil. Forget the Brotherhood. One of my favorite stories to come out of that era. That mini renaissance was Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4. Very much appreciate y'all's time. Please stop by again. Hope you all have a Merry Christmas.
I believe what we had discussed or found out last time is that it's a you declare it as a Mindtree holiday, but it doesn't count as a Microsoft holiday. Still, is the problem, and we only get Microsoft holidays.
Oh, so
Happy New Year.
At one day you come back and say that all the team members want to take holiday in December. No, that cannot be done. Make sense? Everyone got the privilege to enjoy your holidays, leaves. Please make good use of it.
Thank you for visiting. Stay safe. Peace.
Than a highly coveted, very aggressive workspace. And don't think that just because we are here that it is set in stone. It is not. Okay? Microsoft does constant contract renewal opportunities, which is